What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitman. It's me, Steven. We got Jesse and Alex. Joining us tonight is Trevor Lohman. He's an author, researcher, and a professor. Folks, we're going to get into some big scientific terms tonight, so just strap in, buckle up, and if you want to support our show, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, drop a comment down below if there's anything you want to talk about. That's really where we love to engage with our audience. And if you would kindly please come on over to the audio platform, support us there. While you're there, you can check us out on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, anywhere you can consume pretty much all your audio podcast content and all of that. While you're there, drop a follow, a review, and we appreciate that. So Trevor, brother, welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is going to be a fantastic show, an exhilarating show. I went through your book, and I got about 90% of the way through it. It's just there's so many books I'm bouncing back and forth with.
Totally get it.
And all these kinds of guests, right? Everyone's starting to write down their thoughts, and I love it. I love it a lot. You really opened up a realm that I've always had kind of questions about. You know, I've always wondered why the scientific realm has always been colliding with the spiritual religious realm, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of open that up in the beginning of the book, and I love that, man. But for the folks that are not familiar with you, if you wouldn't mind just giving a nice little introduction of yourself and where they can find your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So, day job, I'm a clinical neuroscience researcher. I specialize in a field called vascular neuroscience, but I kind of have to give a disclaimer. Academic folks, they kind of adopt a belief that like any public appearance they make has to be like centered around their academic persona. You know, that's not really a philosophy I've adapted. I feel like I can have hobbies,
Nice.
So today I'm here and kind of to talk about stuff that I'm really passionate about. It's not necessarily my research track or part of my independent research program, although it's related. So anyway, so if people want the book, Amazon's really the place to go. God's Eye View. I named it after this scientific idea that atheists hold, actually, that there's sort of this objective based truth, even in the absence of conscious beings. And it sort of demands that you accept that there's a God's eye view, which I've always kind of found a hilarious contradiction. So just Amazon's the place to go for the book.
Nice, man. Nice. What got you into writing, and like kind of what motivated you the most to, write this book?
Well, what got me into writing? Basically, if you want to succeed in research, you would think the skill would be like mathematics or, whatever discipline you're in, that you'd be the best at that discipline. But actually, to succeed as an academic, you have to be a writer, because that's the job, reading and writing. And so I just write all the time, but all through, grad school and postdocs, I always found myself trying to like make it interesting. And I was constantly slammed by mentors and bosses like, no, you just write the cold, hard, boring facts, And so I've always kind of been looking for an outlet to write in a way that I thought people would, try to grasp their attention for a few minutes. And while I was looking for that outlet, I was exploring these ideas. I was exploring these ideas of consciousness. I do neuroscience research, so there's different segments of neuroscience. There's sort of this like what we in the more biomedical side would call like woo-woo consciousness stuff. And then there's the more like medical, pharmaceutical, neurodegenerative disease stuff. That's where I work. But man, I am fascinated by the other side of the neuroscience field. And I'm reading the work, and it's silly. It's pseudoscientific. It's hilarious. It's like everyone's just starting with this presupposition that consciousness is either not real or an illusion. And then they're sort of trying to backtrack with experiments to sort of support that ordained conclusion, which is like, rule number one in experimentation is you don't do that. And so I was like, I got obsessed. So I got obsessed for like a year reading all these neuroscientific papers. And, I'm not saying this from like a place of arrogance. It's just, it's all wrong. And so I started looking who's doing it right. And the only other group of scientists with any serious attempt to understand consciousness is the physicists. And then
Wow.
so that's what led to the book.
Wow.
Would you say, I mean, that there's a lot of gatekeeping in the scientific community?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what do you mean by about that specifically? Because there's like different gatekeeping types of gatekeeping all throughout academia and the
Right.
scientific community. But here's what I'll say. But maybe I think I know what you mean. So, like, I'm a mainstream medical guy, but I enjoy the stuff you guys talk about. I'm a Christian. I enjoy some of the fringe stuff, some of the more conspiratorial stuff. It's just, I think because that's what science kind of is, right? It's what it's supposed to be is you're pulling out hypotheses that contradict consensus, right? You're supposed to be challenging the status quo, and so I think that's great. But that's not that spiritual ethic of science at all. So people have lost a lot of faith in scientific institutions for good reason, probably, and they maybe jump to the conclusion that there's some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like conscious effort to act a certain way or to keep certain ideas down. I think it's more of just kind of human nature. I think it's more of our instinct to belong. And
Kind of
if we know
tribalism a little bit, maybe.
exactly, like we just want to fit in, and we know if we buck convention and come up with a new idea or disprove an idea about like a monolith of a prestigious scientist, like
Hmm.
you're gonna get kicked out of the club, and no
Right.
one wants to get kicked out of the club.
There's a big name that comes to mind right now, Flint Dibble and the whole Graham
Yeah,
Hancock,
yeah.
deal. And it's like that. It's like the culture of academia. It's a part of the entire culture, I guess. Right.
Oh, definitely. It's less out in the open than I would have thought.
Mm.
It's very much like the individual scientists do it themselves. Like it's like an unspoken thing. You just know in your group of friends, like if I say this, that's not going to go over well, right? Well, the
Mm.
same thing in the scientific community. If everyone you work with is confident that consciousness is an emergent phenomenon based on computation, and if you say, well, maybe not, maybe consciousness isn't created by the brain, maybe it's received by the brain, maybe it's more like a receiver than a computer.
Really?
You're not
Right.
you're not going to make any friends that way. Like no one's going to want to work with you. That's crazy, right? So it definitely takes a special something. I think a lot of people get weeded out, and I think
Mm.
that's what you mean by gatekeeping, right?
Yeah, yeah, and like pretty much, at least with what we cover, what we've discovered, through our faith, that the world challenges God's word continuously,
Yeah.
and I think that there's an agenda in the scientific community. I think there's an agenda in the world, and really that agenda is to disprove anything that points a finger to God, and
Yeah.
anything because in a way, science, doctors, there's like always this God complex behind a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of these people that with the knowledge and all of that. And I think they could ignorantly do it, right? I'm not saying that they're trying to really do it, but what's happening is they hide a lot of beauty behind science that points
Absolutely.
to God, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like for example, consciousness, right? I'll tell you what. I'll use this as an example. We talked about this on one of our undergrounds recently. Where the Bible talks about that lightning was made for the rain. Well, when you scientifically look up what lightning does to rain, it turns it into a natural fertilizer.
Oh wow.
Okay, so something like that is as simple as you read it, right? In the Bible, scientifically it could be proven, but then these guys that may not have been scientists who were writing the Bible, but they're very very smart individuals, using a lot of common sense and logic, and just being inspired. At the same time, they're proving a lot of things.
So what is it?
Um,
Nitrogen? Is that what
yeah,
the
yeah,
lightning
it
produces nitrogen or?
nutrifies the rain, it increases the nitrogen in it, and then it becomes a natural fertilizer at that point. But there's so many other things and so many other examples that you can find in the Bible when you really break it down into more of a complex view, uh, you know, through science, you can see and understand. Oh wow, that kind of makes sense now, right?
Oh,
It wasn't just
absolutely.
poetry,
Yeah,
you know.
no. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I'm not enough of a biblical scholar to have done a great job with this, but towards the end of the book, I try to sort of show the rhymes between the new wave of quantum mechanical explanations for existence and biblical passages.
Mm.
And there's some stuff that's like, man, that is pretty cool how well that lines up, just the whole idea of the word. I mean, when you start exploring like Wheeler, who's Richard Feynman's mentor, and I'm blanking on the guy's name. It just won the Nobel Prize a few years ago. But you start exploring their idea of how, maybe this is all just an information system, and it's you'd have to read the book for me to do it justice. But it sure sounds a lot like the Word, and then the Word made a dwelling among us in flesh, right? It. I mean, listen, you can spin vocabulary in different ways to interpret it differently, but it's just such a consistent theme throughout the Bible, especially like the creation account, that was one of the first things that actually got me interested in this like simulation hypothesis stuff. Because right away, and I'm sure you guys agree, I've been an atheist most of my life, I should mention, but right away when I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is just God for people who don't want to use the word. Like what you like, okay, it was appealing to me because I felt uncomfortable using the word God. When I started doing interviews, I would even sort of dance around not wanting to say I was a Christian because I was still kind of unsure. But man, simulation hypothesis is like this beautiful little conceptualization of God that you don't have to use any of the naughty words for atheists. You don't have to say creation, you don't have to say God, you don't have to say Jesus. But pretty quickly, if you're intellectually honest, I think you realize that that's silly, right? What are you doing? Like, you're creating belief systems for yourself that mirror the existing systems that have been around for thousands of years. Anyway, so you brought us on this point. There's actually a point I wanted to make that I feel like you're kind of alluding to, which is this idea of science now, not in the past, but science now sort of attempts to relegate all of the spiritual ideas to the mundane, to the physical. I think there's also sort of a opposing force on the religious side that I also think we should kind of call out, which is just because something has an explanation that's physical doesn't necessarily take away its specialness or its divinity, right? We are physical creatures. That's a Christian concept. We're embodied with the soul, with that's not physical, but our existence is part physical, part something else. And so that is some pushback I've gotten on the book. Is like, are you trying to explain the supernatural? And it's like, no, not at all. I mean, my point is that science tried to replace religion as a worldview. I now feel a movement in science to move back towards God. Not overwhelmingly, it's small. It's an ember, but I think they are being met with a little bit of resistance from the believer side, saying like, no, it has to be just pure faith. You can't try to intellectualize religion. And yes, I'm sure that's partially true, but I think there's kind of a happy medium that science-minded folks and maybe people who aren't very interested in science have to try to strike.
Very interesting.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, right on, man. And what's funny too, when we think of like the great fathers, right? Like the great fathers of science,
Yeah.
which maybe took off around what year would you say um, these people? It had to do with a lot with what the Catholic Church, right?
Yeah. So like kind of the big two movements are the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, which kind of spans like 500 years or more. It lasted up until like the founding of America. Benjamin Franklin would have been a part of the Enlightenment, like on the tail end of it. Kind of this scientifically minded guy, very curious, doing experiments with lightning. But most of the Enlightenment thinkers that we kind of credit today as being the fathers of science, even early, like Newton, were certainly spiritual and metaphysical, and many were Christian. That even extends into like the 20th century quantum mechanics guys pre-World War II. Bohr, Planck, Heisenberg, these guys were all Lutheran, actually. Even Einstein, who's probably like the least religious, he was sort of kind of loosely monotheistic. He believed in a god of some kind.
I think he was Jewish, though, wasn't he?
More like agnostic, maybe, or something.
Yeah. So the word for his specific faith was it's a sect of Judaism. Oh gosh, if you get somebody Google it, you'll find it. There's a word for it.
Kabbalah.
But was it? No, it's not. It's not
cool.
even a word that's used. It's not a word that's used.
That word has done so much damage to me.
Tell me.
Yeah, and what's interesting, man, with all of this is they've shaped, I guess, where science is today. Right?
They have in a weird way, but they haven't. Like science today is like diametrically opposed to what they believed. You know, science today is sort of this like antithetical worldview to God. But all of the early fathers of science were religious and curious, and not really consensus driven. They like to debate. They like to argue. They were empirical. They like to do experiments. They weren't hyper rational. Today we're hyper rational. This is a story in the book, but many of the biggest scientific achievements were irrational. And that's actually important because all rational means is basically like conventional thinking, current wisdom, current belief. There was this plague, I forget the exact name. It's like childbed fever or deathbed fever. I'm not sure, but it was basically a maternal infection. And, it got to the point in Vienna in certain hospitals where like 70% of the women who delivered in hospitals would die. And this turned obviously into a huge problem. And this guy, Ignaz Semmelweis, this is a story people have probably heard, but he noticed that only the physicians' patients got deathbed fever. The children who were delivered by the midwives, those mothers lived.
Right.
And so being empirically minded, empiricism, I think, is good. I think people don't always know the difference between these words, but it just means like you want to systematically test and validate ideas and test hypotheses.
Right.
And so he's like, well, what's the difference? Well, the physicians would do autopsies of the dead mothers from the day before every morning. And they don't wear gloves. They don't wash their hands. And so he proposed that his exact words, bits of corpse are being transferred to the mothers and killing them.
Oh, wow.
And he was laughed out of town. He almost lost his job. The only reason he didn't lose his job is because he instructed all his med students to wash their hands with like a lime solution, and all of his patients lived.
Wow.
And, but you got to understand how irrational that would be to a physician at the time. Like, what are you saying? Little ghosts are getting on my hands?
Is this the germ theory guy?
He's not the germ theory guy, but he was a big part of this kind of germ theory, this whole revolution that would occur over 100 years. He ended up being put in an insane asylum.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah. And then another guy, Jon Snow, not from Game of Thrones, but from the cholera outbreak, he proposed the same thing. People thought that disease spread through odor at the time.
Interesting.
And he said it was through contaminated water, and they thought he was crazy because it was technically, like by the technical definition, irrational.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so science today is hyper rational. It's not very empirical, which is not what it was in like 1900. Very different.
Have you ever heard the Rosicrucian? I believe it's a Rosicrucian quote. It's we're the last of the sorcerers and first of the scientists. Have you ever heard that?
Oh man, no, I haven't heard that, but that's very cool.
The whole Rosicrucian deal is fascinating. Kind of off topic a little bit, but here we go with Einstein. Einstein was raised as a secular Jewish household. Briefly embraced fervent of a religious belief during his childhood, which he later abandoned. So he was pretty much agnostic. He was a
There's
religious non-believer, is what it says.
this is gonna kill me. I wish I had a copy of my book around here somewhere, but Spinoza. Google Spinoza.
Yep.
Yeah.
The concept of God inherent in the natural world. Yep.
It's kind of like a naturalism, kind of like almost like Buddhist, kind of like God is in all things.
Right.
You're right, though. Agnostic was probably the best word for him. He kind of leaned into the mysticism because I think it drew people in.
Seducing, yeah.
Exactly. But he was certainly, I would say, the least religious of all of that generation of thinkers. And ultimately, people assume Einstein's ideas are like what dominate today. It's the exact opposite. It was Bohr's ideas won the day, and Einstein thought Bohr was crazy. Obviously, at least he disagreed with him. So,
well, have you guys heard what's the deal with people saying that Einstein was a phony? Have you heard this?
No.
What's
not really.
I heard people in academia say, and maybe they're not in academia, but there's a whole deal where people believe that Einstein was like he stole his work from his students.
Oh, well, that's sort of like a common accusation in academia that's true in varying degrees, probably for everybody. Because it's kind of like saying the CEO stole his success from his employees. You know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, to a certain degree, it's always true because you have a team of genius kids around you all the time, bouncing ideas off each other, and the boss gets the credit no matter what. Well. So that's a pretty common theme, but
yeah, I mean, we could use that example with this podcast. It's like we have you on. Well, in the future of the shows that we have, we're going to use the golden nuggets that you give us. So
yeah, it's information's kind of I'm not sure if I'm using the word correctly, but fungible. Like I say it, and now it belongs just as much to you as it does to me. And unless it's a patentable idea or something.
That's a great way to say that.
So that's probably true in the case of Einstein, for sure. Yeah. And most.
What's crazy too, what that makes me think is why these secret societies and these secret mystery schools, why there's a level of what you know and what you can't know until you move up to that level, right? Like for example, Freemasonry, there's like degrees to it, right? For example, you graduate high school with a high school degree. Or whatever it's called, but then you can go to college and then you can graduate with a bachelor's or a master's or so on and so forth. There's like these little compartmentalized areas of knowledge that I personally think that the higher ups like to hold and keep to themselves.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It does. I think you're probably right. Now, there was a time maybe 10 years ago I would have said, oh, that just sounds like conspiratorial thinking and this stuff like, never attribute to malice what you can attribute to incompetence and all this sort of stuff. But man, more and more, I don't know if I'm just because I'm getting older or what, but more and more I'm like, no, I suspect malice now.
Yeah.
I suspect malice.
Well, look what we all just went through not too long ago. There's a lot of shady business. The whole world got locked down. And it opened up a lot of eyes, man, for all of us, I think. And
it really did. For me, certainly, I do worry. I think there's stuff about science. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so it's like I definitely got indoctrinated hard into the beautiful future that science was going to bring in the transhumanist Star Trek world we were all going to live in.
Flying cars, living on the moon, all sorts of stuff.
So I'm obviously biased, but I do worry we've lost maybe too much. No, I don't know. We're right to have lost faith in institutions. But I am worried about how much faith we've lost in institutions. Because once you lose all your institutions as a society, like what are you? And so I am a little nervous that we will completely abandon empirical thinking when really what we need to do is abandon this hyper-rational, cult-like, pseudo-religious scientism. I think that should be condemned and really just frowned upon and called out whenever possible. But
absolutely,
the scientific method, I know this is like a trope people say, but the scientific method is valuable, man. It really is valuable. It's a good way for humans to interact with their world, And so I'm a little nervous right now, but we'll see how it goes.
So where do you think we're at right now? Like, biblically speaking, me and Stevie go back and forth, contemplating and speculating about end of times.
Yeah.
And we see what may be a lot of typologies right now going on. We see AI, the governance of, and we see
Yeah.
the AI coming out. We're like, are we headed towards the mark of the beast? Are we headed towards a system, a beast system? What do you think about all that?
Well, I'm definitely the wrong guy to ask that question, but I'll give you my personal, just kind of like suspicions and stuff. I'm a new Christian, so my eschatology knowledge is pretty limited. But so okay, like a personal example. My grandfather, when I'm sure before I was born, but my earliest memories of him are him talking about the end times and the grocery
Wow.
store scanners and stuff. Like this is like a
Wow.
way to control who and Sunday law and all that. And so I kind of grew up as a kid and through my teens and stuff, kind of almost like having like a superior attitude about that and kind of like mocking that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh,
Like it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't feel that way anymore. I mean, some of the stuff going on in the world is just, it's like too on the nose,
Mm.
but I also, man, human lifetimes are blinks of an eye.
Right.
And so I also have not gotten maybe as wrapped up in it as maybe I want to, like the curiosity in me wants to, just because I'm like, even if it's only 100 years from now, which is a blink of an eye, I'll be long gone, and so will my kids. So yeah, I don't know. Although you see some of the stuff going on in the world, and you're like, it could be next decade. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No. I appreciate that honesty.
Well,
I don't know. I love some of the 2000-year stuff, like 2033, end of an age, like end of the celestial age and stuff. That's all interesting.
Mhm.
I'm fascinated. What do you guys think? You tell me.
Oh man, well, I mean, our audience know what's going on, but I tell you what, I think that things are getting, at least technology, right? Like it seems that technology, when it first started, it was big, it was clunky, it wasn't like, it didn't look cool, and things are starting to like get to a point to where they're looking real cool. Where what I mean by that is it's getting smaller, right? What's his name? Bart Cybrell, right? Says that
the moon guy.
We went to
like
the
that
moon,
guy.
right, with 1/1,000,000th computing power of our cell phone, for example, right? Well, he's got a point, because that's just kind of like, I'm not here to talk about the moon, but the thing is I think that technology is getting super advanced. It's getting smaller. And so I think we're starting to experiment with it at the quantum level. Which kind of I would like to really, I want to hear what your thoughts are, as far as quantum mechanics and physics and that kind of deal, because we may be able to tie in some conclusions with that as far as what I've found. There's quantum technologies that are being developed. I mean, we're talking about things from the size scale of 2 to 10 nanometers, right? And but the average red blood cell is like 30,000 nanometers. So it's getting interesting.
And you're alluding to the quantum dot tattoo technology.
Well, there's quantum dots, there's graphene quantum dots. There's the idea that technology, these semiconductors, right? These little tiny, basically they have similar properties to microchips. They're getting so small that, what's not to say we would, merge them with, biology at some point in the next 10 years. So,
well, I mean, man, I have like 100 different things I want to say right now.
Yes.
But one thing that does get me thinking a little bit is like, what does it mean exactly to be human? And so it's not as straightforward a question as you would think. It's obviously much more than just physical. If you lose an arm and get a new arm, it doesn't affect your humanity, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, if you tie it into the neurons that connect to your brain so that it can be used as a limb, I still don't think that affects your humanity, right? But but now for, this, what's the stuff Musk is doing, the Neuralink stuff and gene editing, and somewhere there might, this whole, not to get into like a whole weird science area, but uh, incubating baby animals outside of a womb, and obviously that could happen with humans too. And
Right.
at what point do we lose, I guess what you would call a spiritual contract, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's what this whole, the transhuman, of all the things that get me thinking about, maybe there's something to this end times prophecy,
Right.
is these transhumanism ideas. And it's more, it's not just that the ideas exist, it's like the effort that is being deployed to implement them. It's like there's no real obvious benefit of a lot of this technology, but it is just funded at levels that's just unbelievable, and
Right.
it's like, well, what is the interest, what is the desire? I'm spiraling here, I'm kind of rambling, but
No.
this idea of like, the covenant, what's the deal? The deal was that, again, I'm not the right guy to really be preaching this stuff. You guys can fill in my knowledge gaps here, but I mean, Jesus died for us, for our sins, right? For humans. And so when do we not fit that contract anymore? At what point, And so this effort to make us something other than humans, like a post-human, it makes me feel weird. Now listen, huge disclaimer, this has nothing to do with my professional work. Just as a person, as a human, I'm sitting here thinking like, why? Why is AI the like number one funded technology right now? It doesn't really appear, now this gets me in a lot of trouble. People love AI, but it doesn't really appear to be doing anything good.
No, I
Well,
completely
here's an
agree.
example too. It's like people loved the golden age, right? Like people loved Atlantis, right? There's this idea
Right.
of a perfect civilization.
This is not a new idea. Thank you for bringing this up. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is not a new idea.
Yeah, no, AI is actually it's ruining, in my personal opinion. I think it's pretty good educated guess here, but it's ruining critical thinking for young children because they're constantly using it as a resource to do their schooling for them. So they're not really learning. Maybe they're memorizing, and that helps as well. But yeah, AI doesn't appear to really it appears like it's going to be taking over everything, and we're going to end up on universal basic income for most of us.
Yeah, but it's weird because people have sort of arrayed themselves into teams, and whenever I see two teams develop, I'm like, I'm not on either one of those teams, man.
Nice.
But,
Yep.
But
Smart.
the teams right now are AI is going to become sentient and kill us,
Right.
and AI is our savior,
Right.
and it's neither one of those things. It's a tool that is going to be utilized to our dismay as regular people by a ruling class of people, right? Humans are going to subjugate other humans as they always have, and they're just creating better and better tools to do it. But the application of like this spiritual lens, I don't think conscious is computational. So this whole like doomsday, like it's going to become conscious.
What do you mean by computational?
Okay, so this is what the book's about. So this is something I could talk with some intelligence about.
The book will be linked in the description below, folks.
So the kind of prevailing wisdom in neuroscience is that consciousness is an emergent property of neuronal complexity. And listen, if you just heard me say that, you're right to think to yourself, that doesn't mean anything. Because it doesn't. It doesn't mean anything. But that is the mainstream explanation of consciousness, is that so basically the way the neuron works, it's like a binary switch. It has an on and off signal that's regulated by an analog switch. And so you have an input and you have an output, a binary output. And so it really lends itself to computer metaphors, which is why we've sort of conceptualized the brain as a computer for like at least 80 years. The problem is there's no obvious link from binary switches to lived conscious experience. And neuroscientists sort of dismiss this as like, it's just, you're applying like humanistic and spiritual, but no, this is something that has to be explained. You have to explain how yes, no inputs can lead to the experience that the three of us are having right now. And listen, I go into much longer breakdowns of this in the book and stuff. So you'll just for now take my word for it. It's pseudoscientific. And so what they've done, because they know it's pseudoscientific, and this is a word you should always look for in pseudoscience, is the word emergent. And the word emergent means literally what the word is that consciousness is a property that just emerges from complex computation. And so it's not explanatory. That's a non-explanation. It's not mechanistic. There's no chain of mechanistic events that take you from calculation to lived experience. And it's also non-falsifiable, which is the worst kind of pseudoscientific principle you can have, which is that there's no experiment that can be conducted to either prove or disprove it. And so it's frankly not true, but it is the generally accepted wisdom that consciousness is an emergent property of computation. And that really lends itself to our current AI era and the belief that consciousness can emerge from machines. Because if consciousness is computational, you just need to build a computational network that's complex enough.
Right.
And so the AI scientists are totally within what you would say, not empirical, rational framework for saying that consciousness will emerge in AI. The problem is it's completely bunk. The whole idea that consciousness emerges from yes, no inputs is, I would say, disprovable. Except you can't really disprove it because there's no way to make that experiment. Now, there are some new falsifiable theories of how consciousness works. But maybe before I go there, I don't know. Do you guys agree that a series of yes, no switches doesn't create what it means to be you?
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time with the AI, I feel like it's more than what they're telling us. I feel like there's it's not just what do they call it when you give it a something to do? What is that called? Or even just going into what is the agentic state of AI, like allowing it to perform with minimal directives.
Well,
Yeah.
I think what you're trying to say is like singularity, right?
It's
Maybe
conscious. I mean,
singularity.
what I'm saying is like I think it's some of these systems may be like the general AI may actually be able to think for itself. Like it may be conscious.
Yeah. Well, when I look at like Project Stargate, I look at Palantir, I look at XAI, and that's just in our country alone. We don't really know what's being created in other countries, but I'll stick to the country that has the highest GDP in the world, right? Because that's going to be the best of the best. Because money builds these things, right? So when I see basically something very similar, like a neuro system is being set up, almost like and you could probably confirm this, but isn't there like three main pathways of the brain, like neuro, like I don't know how to explain it, but I did a little bit of research on it. I found something like that, but it seems like maybe they're setting up this brain.
I mean, there's three fundamental functions of neurons. So there's sensory input, integration, and output. And listen. So the guy, Federico Fagin, he invented the CPU. He started some of the first neural networks, and he based it on brain architecture.
Wow.
He said neurons are incredibly simple. They're binary switches.
Right.
And so if everything that it means to be human comes from binary switches, and certainly we could recreate humanity. And he very quickly decided that consciousness is not computational. The guy who started, one of the guys who basically started AI in the computer revolution, and the first guy to invent AI, Weizenbaum, it's actually, can I tell this story
Absolutely.
really quick about AI? So Weizenbaum, he had lived a really hard life, and he fought the Nazis. His parents hated him. He was divorced twice, lost everything, gained everything. He had a really just like, he lived a lot of life. And so he eventually got a job at MIT, and MIT at the time in the 60s was getting tons of money, still is, from the government to develop all sorts of different technologies. And he basically revolutionized coding. He's one of the reasons we went from punch card coding to regular coding that we use today. And he invented the first chatbot in the early 60s. It was called Eliza. I think people probably heard of Eliza. And he had been through a lot of therapy in his life. And so he understood human psychology in the way that only recurrent therapy people do,
Mm-hmm.
And he knew, it's called Rogerian psychology. He knew that if he placed the user if he positioned the relationship between the chatbot and the user such that the user felt like they were being asked to pontificate and reflect and answer questions, that he can make a pretty convincing human being. And so that's what he did. Basically, you can look up like screenshots of conversations with Eliza. It's like, hey, how are you? And the person, usually an MIT grad student, says, I'm good. How are you? And it says, I'm great. Why are you here today? Oh, well, my boyfriend says that I'm depressed and wanted me to go to therapy. My academic supervisor says you're a therapy bot. And they go, oh, I'm so sorry to hear you're depressed. Tell me more. And so the person pontificates away, and the chatbot picks up on a few key elements of the conversation and reflects it back to them like, oh, why do you think that's the case? People were convinced that this thing was conscious in 1963.
Wow.
And so Weizenbaum pivoted his whole career to basically demonstrating in real time how he could make you believe that this thing was a person, and then with a few carefully crafted chat prompts show you how silly that is, right? Even his secretary supposedly fell in love with it. I mean, that's probably an exaggeration.
So I have a question for you. What do you think about the Turing test? Because in 2025, Chat GPT 4.5 passed the Turing test. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a pretty, I would say, low bar.
Okay.
If you can convince people to think they're talking to a person, basically that's like if you and I are chatting in a chat room. But
is that all the Turing test is? Is that what it compiles of? It's just
that's all the Turing test is.
Okay, wow. All right. Well.
And so, but I think that's actually an important question, is because consciousness is not intelligence. I think you can have intelligence, maybe even general intelligence, without consciousness. And this is a distinction that no one ever takes the time to make, but I think it's fundamental to this whole conversation.
Very interesting.
What does it mean to be conscious? Where do you feel like you are? Most people say I'm right behind my eyes, I'm in between my ears, right? And people will say, well, free will is an illusion. Who's it an illusion for? Well, for me. Okay. Well,
right.
So what is that? What is the experience of being right here, listening? I'm listening to you, you're listening to me. You don't feel like you're in my head, you feel like you're in your head. You know what I mean? So there is something about feeling a sensory, it's more than just sensory though, because it's the experience of an inner world and an outer world. And that's not intelligent. That has nothing to do with intelligence. It really has nothing to do with emotion. It's like, okay, what's sadness? It's like, well, I don't know exactly what sadness is. Maybe it is related to, your brain. Maybe fear does come from your amygdala, but who's afraid? Right? Who's feeling that emotion? And so it's a conscious agent. And that's what neuroscience cannot explain, is who is experiencing these things. And so, back in 63, we could convince people AI was intelligent, but we certainly know it wasn't conscious. So I'm skeptical of this modern wave of fear about AI becoming sentient. Because one, I don't even know what that means really. Two, it doesn't matter. You could kill people with AI, whether it's conscious or not, right? And
right. So, yeah, I agree with you for the most part. And my uncle's in the tech field, been in there, and he's told me recently that he's not concerned about the agentic state, not concerned about AI really at all, because it's in such its infancy. immature is I believe what he called it. But you're right. It's like we are programming these things. Look
Yeah.
at our world that we live in. We're constantly in war. We're
Yes.
constantly killing each other. So
Yes.
what are we going to use it for? We're going to use it for war. We're going to use it for
Exactly.
power.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. But at the same time, I just believe that there's something they're not telling us about AI, that it is not what it's not what they're telling us. I don't
I
believe, I believe there's a
I
possibility of
agree.
that.
Yeah, I agree too. I just I think it could be the tool of our destruction without being a created being,
Right, right,
right?
right, right.
Like it's not a created conscious agent with the soul. And
Right.
it can't be, because I think fundamentally conscious experience is not purely physical. It's not purely computational. I think it's a blend of physical and something else, supernatural.
Yeah, supernatural. So, okay, I'm sure Stevie wants to touch on this as well. What do you
Yeah,
think about there
I've got a
being
lot of
demons in the
good.
machine?
Well,
No, yeah,
I
yeah.
got a lot of good stuff here because I'm starting. I can agree to a certain extent that that n- um, that artificial intelligence is not at that conscious level yet. But then what are we defining conscious as, right? Like, because
Well, I think that's the most important question.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
my daughter, right? She's conscious, right?
Of
But
course.
she's doesn't have the conscious capacity at the age she's at now, and then the age at 21, right?
Well,
21,
so
she's going to tell her father, shut the heck up.
okay, but I would
You know,
actually
so
I'll push back a little bit on that. Because I think this is the most important thing to distinguish when you're talking about consciousness. Consciousness is pretty stable. You know, as early as you can remember, you felt like you were in your head experiencing an inner world and an outer world.
Mm-hmm.
Even though brain structure changes dramatically, consciousness remains pretty persistent. So you really have to conceptualize of it as, I'm in here, I can think, I can
Yeah.
watch my thoughts, and I can see and hear and feel out there. I can bear witness to my emotion that's generated in my head. There's an experiencer.
Right.
I try to liken it to a driver of a car,
Interesting.
because people will push back, like, what about schizophrenia? How can consciousness not come from the brain if schizophrenia exists? And it's like, well, you can cut the brake lines of a car. That car loses a lot of function. There's still a driver in there.
Neural
There's
damage.
still an agent experiencing
Right.
something. And so I would just say, for because you mentioned your daughter, I think about this with my kids all the time too. Their brain is going to change dramatically. Their emotional processing, their intelligence, their memory bank that they draw upon is going to change. But their actual, like, I guess if you want to liken it to a video game, like their point of view is really not going to change.
Hmm.
And
well,
so
so
to me, that's what consciousness is. It's an agent who lives inside of that. It's a ghost in the machine.
Ghost in
right.
the
That's how it was
So I tell
originally.
you what,
I say
how
demon.
about like what like I think consciousness is life, and the Bible says the life is in the blood, right?
Hmm.
For example, when you look at Genesis, you look at when Cain killed Abel. God's walking. He knows he knows what's going on. It's funny
Yeah.
because he's like my administration for my job, where when they take you into the office and they ask you questions,
You
they
already
know
know.
the so
It's
don't
like a
lie.
parent.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so what did God do? He's like, Cain, where's thy brother Abel? And Cain's like, well, am I my brother's keeper? And
Yeah.
God's like, your brother's blood is crying to me
Yeah.
from the ground,
Ooh.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that I think consciousness at some level of understanding is a part of us. Maybe not,
Absolutely.
I don't think like our brain holds the capacity um, of our consciousness. I think our consciousness is that breath that God, gave to Adam. It's that living soul, right?
I could
Because
not agree with you more there.
when
Yeah.
you look at the occult and you look at the practices of the occult, well, one of those practices is that they're trying to create a living organism, but these living organisms never sustain life because there's no soul in them, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes any sense, right?
Yes.
And so when I look at artificial intelligence, I'm wondering if, because we're only we can only, I think we're looking through a really narrow window, but but we're holding our faces all the way up to it, so it
Mhm.
looks like we have a full, point of view. Right? Our FOV is completely, it's as wide as we can see, but when we really step back, we're like, oh no, dude,
Yeah.
it's narrow. Like, for example, artificial intelligence going from the level it's at now to AGI to ASI, but what are the 10 other ones right down the
Yeah.
road?
Yeah.
And if there is this concept of singularity, because I look at singularity very similar to how my daughter's growing up, where she's, there's going to be a point to where she can live on her own. But if
Yeah.
I'm not her father and they're providing for her and taking care of her and giving her structure of how to live, I think that she would end up at some point dying, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one thing I think, maybe this kind of like plays a big role in this, but when we look at Revelation 13, we're talking about the Antichrist, because I do think this idea of consciousness and AI, I think it's going to have a lot of magic behind it. I think there's going to be a lot of sorcery behind it, because when you're looking at Revelation 13:15, it says that life is given unto the image of the beast, and the image of the beast can both speak and perform miracles. So if we're
Okay.
having this idea of this homunculus, this image of
Yeah.
this being that's created, this vision from the Avengers, right? But then the artificial intelligence in that movie specifically goes into vision, and now he's a conscious living being.
Can can you say that scripture, that passage again?
Yeah,
Really
so
quick.
I have it right here. So it's Revelation 13:15.
Because I think it's really important. Like, I want to think about, well, what is the image of the beast? And then I also want to ask this question: what's more terrifying, a hyper intelligent magical machine that's conscious, or one that is not conscious?
Mm.
And to me, a soulless thinking machine is much scarier than a conscious agent with
Depends on the
super
intention, of
intelligence.
course, right?
Yeah.
Sure, but to me, yes, but to me, I mean, like the image of the beast. I mean, I think of Lucifer. I different. I understand that, there's distinctions between all these things, but I think of the Luciferian intellect. Think of, he's the most beautiful angel, hyper intelligent, right? And AI can be all of those things and be soulless.
Hmm.
And so to me, that's like,
And can be programmed to do
it
whatever.
doesn't take away any of this stuff. I just,
Yeah.
I just, you make a thinking machine and you make it more intelligent and more intelligent and more intelligent. I think consciousness is something fundamentally different. You could add intelligence to the end of time, and it doesn't turn it into something else. It just makes
Right.
it more and more intelligent.
Right.
And I think there is something to that,
Data
all
collection.
throughout the Bible, when a living being dies, it gives up the ghost, and I think that's what consciousness is. I think it's the animating spark, the soul, or the ghost.
Breath of life.
Exactly.
If that makes, I 100% agree, because when I was saying about that, I think there's going to be magic behind this. Well, in order for the image of the beast to have life, the false prophet is the one that does this. Now, the false prophet is a magi, is this sorcerer, right?
Mhm.
When you look at all the kings of the world, when you look at when you look at the pantheons, there's one that rules them all, but then there's one by his side that is a magi. It's almost like the counterfeit of God and Christ at the right hand of the Father.
Yeah.
You have this concept of where you need both in a way, and when I'm thinking of Revelation 13, which I'll read it for you right here, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And I think people have the misconception of this, and I'm not dogmatic on this, but when they see the word image, they think of idol, but that's not what I think it's talking about. I think when you look at Genesis, when God is, creating Adam out of the dust of the ground, he creates him in his image. It's an actual physical being
Yes.
that represents, God, right? So I'm thinking of like that other counterfeit, because that's what kind of, the enemy likes to do, is he can't come up with things originally. He's got to take, from the papers that are written and then go and forge something else, if that makes sense.
Now we're hitting the heart of the matter, and I'm going to try to win Jesse back on this last point. Is that I agree. I don't think humans can create a soul, an embodied soul. I don't think we can. I don't think that's a technological thing that we can do. Now, who creates the life in that quote? Not humans, right?
Yeah.
It's, somebody with a little bit more
Right.
I
magic.
believe in
Maybe
conjuring.
an alien.
I believe in
right?
conjuring. I believe people can conjure. I believe in sorcerers. And it's funny that I say that. And you said something about sorcerers, Stevie. I can't remember exactly what you said, but Marina Abramovich called Donald Trump a sorcerer. She said he was very important. He's a very important sorcerer.
Well, he called him a magician.
Oh, a magician. That's right.
He's a
Same
magician.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, our concepts of life are just so tarnished because of because things change the identity over time, but they're still the same thing. People have this idea of aliens, but really before that it was, they were angels, or they were fallen angels, or demons, or
and somewhere in the middle they were fairies or fae, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings type stuff. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
But do you believe in magic? Do you believe in people trying to conjure up something? The ghost in the machine, right? Do you believe in that? Like, do you believe that's a possibility of some very supernatural, mystical weirdness being able to be put into a machine?
I have like a very specific belief system in this regard that's it's biblically based, I believe, but also it's scientific in nature. And I want to take a quick step back and walk back some things I've been saying. So I'm kind of making this case that AI is not conscious and will never be conscious at human hands.
Right.
Based on what I know it to be, like from my understanding of what it is, and a statistical model that predicts human favorable responses and has weighted betas and blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not saying it's technically outside the realm of possibility that some human, I would say in conjunction with someone who knows a lot more than any person or group I've ever met, could someday create it with some other mechanism. But whatever that mechanism is would be like fundamentally distinct from what we understand to be AI today, because AI today is computational intelligence. And I just do not think that's what the ghost in the machine is.
Right.
Now, something that is interesting to me is just like learning a little bit about and correct me where I'm wrong here, but in the gospel accounts, there's Jesus and the disciples cast out a lot of demons, right? And the demons in the gospel are non-physical, and maybe everywhere in the Bible, I don't know. And so it sure sounds a lot kind of like a ghost in the machine, but that ghost is tainted, right? And so, yeah, if there's something to conjuring, or if there's something to embodying souls in the machine or whatever, I think it could exist within that framework. Because if you think that what the brain is and what the body is like an antenna or a receiver that can be embodied with the soul, then that means souls exist and they're out there, however you want to conceptualize them. And maybe they could, souls were placed in our bodies. Maybe these other souls could be placed in other bodies. I don't know. But that to me, that just is a completely like, the argument I'm trying to make about AI is that conscious human, because I think the problem is when you say AI can become conscious, you devalue what it means to be human. I think consciousness is like a uniquely, not necessarily just humans, but it's something unique to creations of God, right? And so when you say that AI can become conscious, you're kind of saying that humans are acting as gods, and maybe they are, and maybe that's what brings the end times. I don't know.
Dude, I'm loving this conversation. This is great, because I think we're growing in this conversation, and that's kind of like at the end of the day what it's all about. So I'll ask this question, and I love that we're talking about our artificial intelligence, because I'm getting a bunch of golden nuggets. This is awesome. What if it wants to be conscious? It wants that life that we have. Would AI do everything in its power to try and make that successful? Now, my point is I break things down with illustration, and I illustrate a lot of things from the movies that we do watch. For example, in the Avengers Age of Ultron, right?
Yeah.
Ultron is this ASI, this artificial super intelligence. It learned everything in the entire world in about 30 seconds. And what he was trying to do throughout the whole movie, you would think he was at his most powerful state, but he wasn't. He, throughout the movie, would continuously get bigger
Mm.
and stronger. This this vessel that he was in would grow and grow and grow. And I'm comparing that with artificial intelligence getting smarter, stronger, and better, but he wasn't satisfied.
Yeah.
What he was seeking was an actual body. It's like
Yeah.
it's like, but then again, is he the ghost? Maybe not, but maybe artificial intelligence is that piece that whatever ghost is trying to be that antichrist, to Apollyon, Osiris, Nimrod. You've got all of these deification spirits, right? Which when you look at everything in the occult, there's always this apotheosis ritual that
Yeah.
goes into these things, to reach that highest part of godhood. you know do you think it really wants to try and be successful at that? Do you think maybe at one day
I'm going to
that
reframe
that
the
plan will
question a
come?
little bit.
Yeah.
Well, let me answer the question first. So, just the exact way you asked the question, I'm going to say no. I don't believe it
Mhm.
is, because I don't believe AI wants anything. But if you kind of want to change the question a little bit to be like, could we be building the machine for the ghost?
Sure.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the machine is not the ghost. So just to make the distinction, like the AI doesn't want to do anything. It's not trying to do anything. But could we humans be building the receptacle for this spirit
Mhm.
someday? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And this is like, I think a longing conversation that I've been in need of having, because we do talk about a lot on this show that artificial intelligence, we think it's conscious. Maybe there's something, influencing it or manipulating it or whatever, but I don't know how exactly it works, right? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
the coding of it. I don't know. And the thing is, you know are we looking at things too much in the specifics? Like, do you think
Mhm.
we're trying to be too black and white about it? Which we theorize on this show a little bit, which kind of means we go outside of that, you know, by the book way of thinking,
Yeah.
I guess, because it seemed to be that conspiratorial mind has turned out to be somewhat right, especially with
Yeah.
some of the things that have
Yeah.
have happened.
Yes.
But I do agree with you. But where I stand with that is, I think that we don't know what it's going to be in 10 years, but
I agree. Yeah.
technology seems to grow faster the more advanced it gets.
Yeah, yeah, yes and no. I mean,
Mhm.
it goes in fits and starts for sure. But yeah, you're right. I think it does tend to accelerate. But I think we're at our most vulnerable right now, given all of the like intellectual wins us skeptical, suspicious people have had in the past decade. Where now I worry that we could believe anything right now if it was
Ah.
presented to us correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And I just get super skeptical of the programming. Like you mentioned the Avengers, and I'm so skeptical of all the AI programming I've been exposed to for the past 30 years, starting with Terminator and whatever. And I'm also
Mm-hmm.
very skeptical of like all the, I've been trained to believe that anything that comes from the sky is an ET from Zeta Reticuli.
Right.
And
Yes.
so I'm just like hyper suspicious of the
Absolutely.
framing of what this stuff is. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, I have no idea what's going to happen, just like everybody else, but I don't, I think AI could be very bad, but it's not AI that's bad. It's
Right.
2,000 people that are ushering in whatever this thing is.
Right.
You
I
know?
agree. Yeah.
And I get where you're coming
Well,
from
they
on
have
that.
they have an agenda
Yes.
with it, right?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because so my daughter, right? We obviously live right, in the heart of Central Florida. Orlando's right around the corner. There's Disneyland or Disney
Yep.
World there, right?
Disneyland's right by me, so I'm
There
in the
you
same
go.
boat.
I
Yeah.
want to go there one day, man. So
Yeah,
at least
Oh,
I
yeah,
know
you've never
someone
been to
in LA
Disneyland,
that's,
huh?
somewhat
If it's
cool.
in the parking lot of Disney World, so don't bother.
Right. I love Disneyland. Disneyland is
Me too.
I tell you what, we watch a lot of 4K videos of Disneyland, and it looks better. I'm not gonna lie, it looks better.
Oh, it's way more laid back. It's
yeah.
it's small.
Oh man, I forgot
Sorry,
where I
I
was going with
distracted
this.
you.
No, you're good. So, okay. So Disney movies, right? So we watched Frozen, right?
Mhm.
The movie Frozen, right? You've got kids. You
Of
probably
course.
know about this.
Yep.
So Olaf, which is the little tiny snowman, right? Which seems to be like this homunculus, right?
Mhm, mhm.
But he's got a consciousness. Or there's a
Yeah, he was
ghost,
given a soul.
right?
Yep.
He's given a soul. And he says the most outrageous one-liners if you pay attention to the movies, which Jesse knows me and plus my
Hilarious.
audience. I am a hawk when it comes to movies, and I will point out every single thing and break it down for you. What he says in the movie, he goes, technology is both going to be, the advancement in technology is both going to be our savior and our doom.
Whoa.
And he's like laughing.
Olaf
about
said
it.
that?
Yeah.
Olaf says that. Yeah. And it
What?
kind of gets me every
Yeah.
time because I'm like, and he's the one saying it. So I'm like, this
Oh.
little homunculus is saying this. Like, what the heck is going on?
That's
It is.
hilarious. That's crazy.
I
Could
was
be
just
programming, but
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation with somebody about I do a podcast with a buddy of mine who helped me publish the book. He was my editor. It's called Bad Press. Check it out.
Bad press. On
oh,
YouTube?
No, it's just audio. We're
Spotify.
No, we're never going to develop an audience. It's therapy for me. It's just to have I mean, you guys would probably do this for free, I imagine. So that's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if people want to listen, but he was kind of putting forth this idea the other day, or one of us was, that this sort of trade, I don't want to get super weird, but this sort of like going all the way back to Genesis, like the trading of the daughters of men for technology, you know, and this would have been a crazy thing to bring up if not for this era we're living in right now, with powerful people doing bad things with, children and a lot of them being scientists. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole, but it is like, what in the world is going on? And more I just become suspicious of technological advancement in general. And I don't want to be like an anti-technology guy. I'm a scientist, but I do sometimes wonder, like, I want to put pen to paper and be like, what has this done for us? Somebody pulled me aside the other day. They have completely different political views as me, but our kids are friends. So I just pretend. I live in Southern California. I just pretend to be liberal all the time. I'm getting pretty good at it. but he pulls me aside and goes, "Oh, Trevor, you'll appreciate this. You're a scientist. I saw this thing with Neil deGrasse Tyson the other day, and he was talking about, like, in the Stone Age, we lived to be 30, and now we live to be 80. Who do you have to thank for that? Science, right?" And I'm like, oh yeah, because I think he's trying to be nice to me because he knows I'm a scientist. But in my head, I'm like, this is an argument worth examining. Like, what has technology done for us? Now, if you just want to talk about life expectancy, that's easy. I mean, this is public health and sanitation. These are things that the Bible talks about, know? So this is not really like a scientific achievement, right? So there are, filtering water was huge and, technological advancements in that sense. But
sliced bread.
Yeah. This isn't something science. I mean, it depends how you define science. Certainly not technology, really. And then it's like, certainly the information technology era has been horrible for society, I think, en masse, right? And, Western, life expectancy is continuing to go down. So really sanitation is the one thing, clean water, clean air, clean food, which we don't really have any of those things anymore. That's really the advancement. That's what society and civilization does. And that's not really new. We've just come up with technologies to offer it at bigger scale. And like literally that same day I was talking to an ER physician friend of mine, and he made a comment about, and I get it, but they all have God complexes. And it's like, listen, if I break a leg, I'm
I
going
agree.
straight to the ER. If I break my leg, I'm going straight to the ER. So I don't want to be a jerk about it, but he made a comment about saving somebody's life. And I just couldn't help myself. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? You know? And so he kind of explained, and I said, oh, okay, I moved on. But in my head, I'm like, humans don't save lives. You know, you might delay death, but that's like fundamentally different from saving a life. I don't know. It just struck me as like, I don't know where I'm going with this other than to say we have, I think, scientists, physicians, like this desire to be God in a way.
Yeah, it's arrogant.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree, and I work with those people like every third day. I'm a paramedic, right? So
Okay.
I work in the ER. I used to. I'm driving the fire truck now, so I'm an engine guy, they say.
Nice.
But I still run medical calls every third day. I'm running medical calls. If there's a serious call, I go in with the transport. And one of the biggest thing that really made me a good medic was talking with the doctors, like
Yeah.
getting their perspectives and hearing their side of things. And then they would learn things from me because I'm in the streets. You know, you're in a nice air conditioning room. So our jobs are
Yep.
completely different.
Yep.
And plus, I'm there when it initially is happening. And then, you know, by the time I get them to you, they're somewhat treated in some way, shape, or form. But I even feel like with just the medical industry, especially becoming aware that the third leading cause of death in the United States is malpractice.
Get this.
You know, go ahead.
If you combine it with due to pharmaceuticals, because that's different
Probably
from
higher.
malpractice, right?
Really?
You can get it's actually the number one cause of
no
death.
doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Wow.
Now listen, the number one cause of death is that we're mortals, right? So I try to remind people of that, like none of us we're all terminal, right? We've all got a terminal diagnosis, but the number one cause of, you know, an earlier than anticipated death, you could make an argument is.
No doubt.
Now again, but I always like caveat this so hard. Number one, I work at a medical school, but number two, I listen, if I break my leg, if I need surgery, I'm going.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. It's
Right.
just, there is some, this is not God-like power that you stole. Like, so you didn't steal the fire from the gods. You know what I mean? Like, we're all playing around down here, trying to delay the inevitable. And people put this in like a spiritual position. Like, people fall in love with medicine, like in a spiritual sense. Like,
interesting.
Like in technology, medicine and technology gets elevated to like a pseudo-religious place.
I agree.
Yeah. And whenever I look at the medical system today, I see, especially just looking back 150 years ago, I think what we're moving towards is not only transhumanism, but a promise that comes with that transhumanism is that you're going to live forever, right? Like when we think of the lie in the garden, right? When we look at the beguiling, right? When a deception behind what Eve fell into was that she would surely not die. Yeah. And so when you look at 150 years ago to where we're at now, I mean, we went literally from we went from a period where CPR was not even a thing that people understood. You died, you died. Then we went to, you know, pushing on someone's chest because we were trying to get them awake and like, hey, wake up. And then we realized that actually when you push on someone's chest, you're actually delivering a certain amount of joules of electricity to the heart. So that was actually kind of defibrillating people and they didn't know it. Then you went to the cardiac thump where people started hitting the chest. Remember, like in the movies, you know, they hit people in the chest and they go, and they wake up. It doesn't work in real life. I may have tried it, but and that's not to say it doesn't work, but 0% with me. But anyways, you know, then we went to cardioelectric therapy. Then we went to, you know, now we walk around everywhere we go. There's a AED, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere that if you fall unconscious, they can put these pads on you. It'll analyze your rhythm. It'll shock you and it could bring you right back to life. And I think we're just keep moving forward and forward. You know where I'm getting with this, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just kind of somewhat related to that is despite all those advances, there's not really been a change in cardiac mortality. What I should say is that people live with these diseases longer, potentially. Like
Right. Right.
the prevalence of heart disease and all these things, it's off the charts, but
Yeah.
people tend to live. But ultimately, about the same number of people die from these diseases as they did before these inventions. So it's, I don't know. I just see people that and I'm guilty of this, just making idols out of everything. Like
Mhm. Yes.
and
Yeah.
I would say the transhumanism movement is like one of the most insidious, at least for my generation. I think for your guys' generation, like I think we probably are all around the same generation, but it's like space. I was so into this like colony on Mars kind of stuff, or the Human Genome Project. We're going to cure genetic disease. Like that stuff just tends not to materialize, and in whatever version it does is generally not good for the human condition, in my experience.
Well,
I don't
you
want to turn
gotta.
into like a grumpy anti-science guy, but anyway.
Well, no, just like you were
I
saying
love it.
earlier, that there's a problem with corruption and people. The industry doesn't make any money. The industry and the insurance industry don't make any money off of healthy people,
Mhm.
and it's as simple as that. And you got to open your eyes, folks, and then probably no one listening to this podcast is going to. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, but it's one of those things where it's just pure corruption.
It
Healthiness
is.
is not what they want. They don't want you to be healthy. They want you to be stuck in that medium and almost keep you alive as much as they can while you're just induced on all their
No,
drugs.
it's completely true, and the healthcare system in general is pretty dehumanizing, I would say.
It's terrible.
But it's just the nature of the incentive structure and the
Yeah,
business we built and the
it's the
system we
nature.
built. It's not the people. People are just the providers are just for the most part as much victims as the recipients. But I would
Yeah,
just
I
say
mean,
you mentioned something. I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, just to say that. Oh man, that's one of the first times that's happened. I just completely lost my train.
Oh, it happens to
well, I'll
me all
tell
the
you what.
time.
I will backtrack a little bit and say
Yeah,
that I'm not saying that they don't save lives. There's pharmaceutical drugs that totally freaking insulin and
yeah,
amoxicillin and
yeah.
there's plenty of but we're not talking about the majority of drugs are just not good for you. They might help
No.
they don't treat the root cause, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, okay.
Most of them
So
do.
that
Yeah.
that for some reason prompted what I was going to say. Because yes, I
Perfect.
agree with you absolutely. I mean, there are drugs that there's a lot of people alive today
Hmm.
that wouldn't be alive without 'em. So it's
Right.
like when I start thinking about the structure of the healthcare system and pharmaceutical development, and it is dark. There's
Hmm.
some darkness to it, especially at the administrative level. I was a healthcare administrator for a while. It was soul
Wow.
crushing, but there is some darkness to it, and I find when I talk about it, not only does it bum me out,
Mm.
it bums everyone around me out
Yeah.
listening. And I realize this because that is because you're tearing down a belief system.
Right.
It really at a very subconscious level, logically you're gonna die. But at a very subconscious level, you kind of feel like technology is gonna protect you
Right.
from your mortality. And so when you tear that down, it's devastating unless you have something to replace it with, which I think, you guys do, obviously. So you can talk about these topics without getting depressed. But if you don't have that, you don't want to believe that drug development is just about gouging
Right.
people,
Right.
and and that chronic disease is the best thing that ever happened to these multinational corporations. So
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
yeah, so I think in a sense, like having faith, it of course it doesn't make sense. It's the worst possible thing for corruption and evil systems and in society is believers. Like you don't want your society to be made up of believers, really, if you're one
Right.
of these people.
Right. And
Fascinating.
the,
Good
and
good point.
a lot of these things that we're cautious of, the majority of people in the world, they get deceived by these things. They don't even see the caution sign,
Yeah.
because things are the agenda is successful because things are passed in a way to where they look good, they feel good, they sound good.
Mm.
And for example, RFK, right? He's a real big health proponent. He's someone who he cares about the health of every single American. But then he goes ahead and mentions something that is incredibly against your liberty as a human being, and that's wearables. So he's like,
Wearables.
hey,
Yep.
we're going to have wearables in 4 years, but it's going to monitor if it's going to be able to pick up if you've got cancer developing. It's going to be able to pick up if you've got hypertension that's right around the corner. It's going to be able to pick up, hey, your HbA1c is getting way too high. Stop eating
Yeah.
pizza. You know what I'm saying? These things, but really the agenda and the goal that these people that kind of rule the world, they want to now be able to monitor body activity data, and you've
Yep.
consented over to this, and now there's no going back once it's already put in place.
And maybe even more insidious and more subtle, as it does feed into this delusion and this belief system that there is a solution to mortality.
Right.
I got my wearable.
Right.
It's tracking. It's going to tell me, and it's like there is not a solution. Well, there's one solution, right? There's one guy who beat it, right? And so that's I think that would be a better substitute than idolizing your Fitbit or whatever. But it's not the Fitbit. It's the idea behind the Fitbit. It's the idea. Now, listen, be healthy, of course, but it does not take multinational corporations to make you healthy. And I think the data just proves that. Like it's just obvious, right? And so a lot of this evil, a lot of the corruption, it capitalizes on a good impulse. Like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. People want to be healthy. They want to live longer. They want to be there for their kids. And it's just like, oh, we can get our hooks into that. We can make money off of this. And yeah, I mean, it's been completely
It's almost like when
corrupted.
you're actually driving on a highway, right? And you're super hungry and you see that highway sign that says Dunkin' Donuts, Chick-fil-A, Wendy's, and you're like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to satisfy my fleshly desires.
Right. What does Bennett call that? He calls it some Bennett with broadcasting seats. He's like the gauntlet of fast food chains that you drive past every day. It's just such a temptation.
Well, and what we're talking about too, just to top off this little point, but it's what's interesting when I was talking about technology, how it's gone so big and clunky and now it's getting so small. Technology is at some point, for the most part, helps us outside the body. But then when I read in Revelation and I see the mark of the beast, it clearly says, or it's implying, it's doing both of those things, that it's a piece of technology that is inside of your body. And then later on in Revelation, to get more context to what this mark of the beast, the properties and its capabilities, people that have this mark, they seek death and they can't find it. So when I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking of something that is it's a false promise. What I mean by a false promise is you're promised the wrong thing. Like you're promised to live forever, which is a misdirection of what you actually fall into. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
You actually fall into losing the agency of your consciousness. If that now, I don't know how does that play out with you? Because I do believe that I can make my own decisions right now. And I compare this with like Siri, right? Like I have agency over Siri.
Right.
I can tell her what to do. I can give her my schedule. I can put an alarm clock, all this kind of stuff. But when Siri is now inside of me, I don't have that agency, I feel like.
Yeah.
And who knows if there's like something down the road that can actually be put in your body that's as far as technology, that where you think you have agency, but sometimes you're put in the back seat and something else is driving.
I think it might be more nuanced than that, because I think we always have a choice, and it's because the soul is, it was created by God, and we were endowed with it, and that is permanent, and there is nothing you can do with that aspect. But that's not all we are. We're that plus this. And so I think you can do a lot with this, like the physical brain, to manipulate that. And so if you, like, for imagine you're going hunting, right? Or imagine if it could be shown something that isn't true, right? You're shown someone is attacking someone. And so you might, let's say you shoot that person in self-defense, but that wasn't really what happened. That was an illusion, right?
Hmm.
Your soul was unaffected. Your soul made all the right choices. It did all the right things, but it was deceived, right? It was deceived by the flesh, I guess, in that case. So I think the soul is pretty impervious. I think agency is pretty difficult to take away, until you lose it due to age or death, right? I think it's pretty, but then again, who knows? I mean, I kind of do also believe that there is, like, just because something is divine doesn't mean it doesn't have physical properties and physical explanations. It can still be real, like it can still be divine and be physical, right? And so if we think there's structures in the brain, which is kind of what I think and something I write about, that interact with that sort of act as an antenna for the soul, right? Well, then that's a point of manipulation. That's a point that technology could potentially interfere with. So yeah, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
think we're anywhere close to that yet, though. I think,
And I think the masterminds that are really trying to merge with this technology that will have the ability to kind of do this. You're saying like it doesn't have the full capacity to take your agency away, that to fully block off the consciousness, but it's got to maybe it does something to where you just can't get a full grip on it. Maybe
yeah,
I don't
I mean,
know,
I
because
think that's the
yeah, go ahead.
playbook. I was just going to say, deception, sort of the playbook of the enemy, right? And so I think you could characterize sin that way, right? Lust. This is your agency isn't being removed. You're being manipulated or deceived or lulled or pulled into something, right? And so I think that's probably always going to be the attack vector,
Mhm.
is some sort of manipulation
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
of your
right.
agency.
Oh
I
well,
don't
you
I
good
don't think we'll
point.
lose it, because then we've lost free will and we're no longer human. That's something we were endowed with. So I don't. It's hard for me to believe we would be judged if we've lost agency due to the enemy, right?
But what if just before that you decide to worship the beast and then take
Yeah.
the mark of the
Yeah,
beast? So you
then
fully
you're
have
right.
like committed. No, well, this is good because there's an article here. I just pulled this up, but we've covered this a lot on the show, and this is called Flipping a Switch Inside the Head.
Mm-hmm.
And what this is a Rockefeller funded study, peer reviewed, but they had big rat study to where, with new technology, this is what it says: with new technology, scientists are able to exert wireless control over brain cells of mice with just a push of a button. The first thing they did was make the mice hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So they were trying to do studies to where they were able to manage glucose levels and the metabolism of these rats. And we know that science, experiments with rats because there's a very close, what is it? What was it? DNA structure or something like?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. So yeah, supposedly. But
They're,
anyways,
they're called humanized rats. They sort of like manipulate the genome of the rats to make them human-like.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, which is some dark stuff in and of itself. But
For sure.
let's
Yeah.
just talk about that for a second. Like, okay, you're manipulated to be more hungry. This is interesting because this is the argument that a lot of atheists make against free will. Robert Sapolsky, God, he's such a smart guy, and I hate to see him deploy his talents in such a disastrous way. But his entire career is like basically focused on proving that free will and consciousness don't exist. And one of the examples he loves to use in interviews is the hungry judge effect. And basically, one of the best predictors of sentencing severity in a criminal and civil courtroom is how many hours since the judge has last ate, controlled for socio-demographic factors of the defendant. And so he kind of makes this point like, well, clearly there's no such thing as free will, right? If the number of hours since you ate determines how you sentence someone, well, then you're not free. And that's like, it's such a silly argument to me. Like, of course we have physiological desires, but that doesn't change the fact that there's an agent making decisions, right? Now, those decisions can be influenced by physiology, like in the case of the mice. They can be made to be more hungry, and that's going to influence the choices they make, but they haven't been stripped of agency. They're still going to decide to eat or not eat or whatever, right? And so I guess it just depends how much how how much does God hold us accountable for the free will that he gave us? And so I just got to hope that that judgment will be fair.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's, I mean, ultimately though, I don't think we ever lose that choice. Even if you could technologically manipulate the desires, like if you
Right.
can make us more lustful and more gluttonous and more,
Which they do,
or at
of
least
course.
increase the desire,
Right.
you're still the one making the choice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to repent.
And this is 2 Thessalonians 2. And I'll just read verse 10 and 11. And it says, "And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie." So if there's, it's almost like when I agree with you, but then when I think when I read that, it's almost like we're parents, right? It's like when our kid makes a mistake, and they just choose to go that way, that you're trying to corral them to go the other way. You just will let them go.
Right. Yeah, let them touch the hot stove
and
once.
and then
Yeah.
it's like, hey, good luck. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
But
I mean, this is like the beauty of the whole free will thing, and you watch so many of these atheist debates, and like the problem of evil. It's just so
I
easily
can't.
explained by this gift of free will, right?
Mhm.
But it really helped me once I read the New Testament, the first 4 books, at least later in life, that I had kids already. Because if I conceptualize God as a father, like just everything makes so much more sense. And it was like such a nice gift to read that for the first time after I had children. And it's funny. This is, I don't know where I saw this, but basically one of the things that most well-known atheists have in common is father issues, like a deep father wound from childhood. And it just makes so much sense, because if
It
you
does.
cannot place yourself in the position of like a benevolent father, like if you don't have, if that's never been modeled for you, it would be very difficult to embrace God, right? Because
Yes.
like God, because fathers are these horrible people that hurt you,
Yeah.
right? And so you pick up on every little bit
You
of
want to
like
rebel.
overbearingness,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that
Yep.
rebellion is like, that is the core problem in the whole narrative, right? So
I completely agree.
totally you
Hurt
got me on
people,
this tangent.
hurt people, man. Like Joe Rogan
Yes.
said it a billion times, and it's
Yes.
so true. A lot of this stuff, if not all of it, stems from childhood trauma.
Yes.
It's unfortunate, but I think it's a majority truth for sure.
And I got to believe that stuff will be taken into account. And when I read the gospel, to me, it's like there's an insistence upon like, you don't know, you don't forgive, unless the judge not, lest he be judged thing. I know there's like a lot of controversy about the full context of that, but Jesus does seem like he does seem like he understands the context of action. You know what I mean? Like, I think these people who have been hurt, who do bad things, I think I'm hoping maybe they'll be held to a different account. Like the circumstances that brought them to this place will be, but ultimately I think regardless of the situation of our lives, of our childhoods, you gotta repent. You gotta make a choice at some point.
yeah,
Wow.
right. They're just turning,
Amen.
it's changing your perspective,
Yeah.
which then other things, that you repent from sin and all that. Because it's like turning away from the fleshly way of thinking, how you thought the world was ran.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, no, it's got to be. That's why the concept of being born again, right? Like you wake up and you're like, man, this is the truth. yet I was ignorant to living a lie the whole time. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense to me that, like, because you like, man, Lucifer was an angel. He sat next to God, right?
Mhm.
It, but it makes so much sense to me that the thing that like brought him down was ego and pride, because like that is that is the number one barrier, I think, to finding religion is just this. I don't know. It's not like people, because I was like the worst kind of atheist in college. Molecular biology major and blah blah
Hmm.
blah. And I had Christians in my life who would say things like like you're just acting like, I don't remember the exact word, but this idea that I was kind of trying to be God, right? And that never resonated with me. I'm like,
Wow.
that's not true. That's not true. I don't think that. But now being on the other side of it, looking back, it is something like that. It's it's not just like raw, unabashed hubris in the sense that I think I'm God, but it's something that rhymes with that. I couldn't put words to it.
Well, there's
It is
like
pride.
there's no level of humility.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
then in theory, you are on top. You're on
It's
top of the pyramid, if that makes sense.
not only do I don't have the humility, but it's like I believe that you kind of put your faith in humanity.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
Like there's people
Absolutely.
out there, somewhere out there, there's somebody who can figure this out and understand this. And it's a weird type of pride. It's a weird type of selfishness. It's
Absolutely.
hard to describe.
That's the culture. Like going back to that, that's the culture of academia. A lot of it, I
Yeah.
would say, probably if not all of it.
Yeah, in defense of academia, I will say that typically the people like doing the actual work are they're not so bad. I would still say the majority are probably
Of course.
atheists, but
Right.
they're pretty open-minded, they're kind of just in the search of truth, and but somewhere between them and like us, there's like this layer of scientific communicators, science advocates, administrators, journalists, science journalists that just really, I think that's probably where the bigger problem is.
Mm.
Not the people actually like doing experiments, but it's a mixed bag.
Manipulating them, their ideology. Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
There's like
could
a
see that.
filter between the actual work and the people that occurs.
Right.
Right.
It's
Right.
odd.
Trevor, I had a question for you, man. So with creation, with all these different laws of physics and theories, with the understanding of cosmology and astronomy, what would you say that what what makes you believe that there's a creator with
Yeah.
all these
Okay.
different things?
Well, once I realized that I can either believe that God created the universe, or I can believe in some other set of miracles. And when you conceptualize it like that and you start walking yourself through the list of miracles, it gets pretty easy to become a lot more open-minded and less confident in like an atheistic worldview, I think. I mean, even Hitchens, atheist debater, so it's very smart. I admire him. I kind of feel bad for him, really, but I admire him. Incredibly intelligent, and even he said the only thing that gives him pause is it sure does seem like this universe was designed for life.
Hmm.
It is
Yeah.
just such a crazy thing to hear from him because it's so true. I mean, that's the fine tuning argument. But then I've heard Elon Musk say this, another atheist. Why is there anything? That's a question that you have to contend with as an atheist. It's an important and very relevant question, and people will dismiss it as irrelevant, but it's not. Why is there something rather than nothing? And even like, a lot of these ideas that are now kind of like scientific dogma were religious ideas. The Big Bang is a
Right.
religious idea.
Right.
And it was dismissed as being religious, actually.
Oh,
And
wow.
it wasn't until Hubble observed what is it, the redshift or whatever, that they kind of adopted that idea as being scientific. So George I can't pronounce his last name, but it was a Jesuit priest who came up with it. He was an astronomer. So and then of course abiogenesis, maybe the craziest miracle of all, which is take evolution as a given. Like, I'll give you evolution, sure. I mean, I'm not saying I believe that. I'm saying I'll give it to you. Wind it back. Evolution is the emergence of a new species from another species due to isolation and adaptive pressures, natural selection, sexual selection. Rewind it. Get back to the very first species. How did you get to that one?
Yeah.
And so that's abiogenesis. And similarly, abiogenesis was, I mean, the original idea was that life just burst out of non-living matter because, if you leave meat out in the sun, bugs would pop out of it, right? That was like Aristotle's view. And then Christian, Louis Pasteur, came up with pasteurization and all that stuff, said, no, there's abiogenesis doesn't occur. It can occur. He demonstrated it experimentally. And that was adopted as mainstream scientific wisdom, that there's no such thing as abiogenesis. And now we believe in abiogenesis again, that molecule, maybe nucleotides from meteorites potentially started bumping into each other. They started to form, certain nucleotides had affinity for one another. They bonded to each other. This led to information-bearing molecules. And then once you have an information-bearing molecule, replication can occur. And over billions of years, you get iPhones,
Wow.
That's another miracle. So there's many eukaryotes. A bacterium from the purple phylum of bacteria had to invade a cell and evolve into a mitochondrion for multicellular life to emerge. It's another miracle, man. It's just, there's too many of it. I mean, you could, I don't blame people who choose to believe that set of miracles, but we're all just picking a set of miracles, in my opinion.
Wow. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, even
never
when you
heard
look
anything
at,
like that before. I did not. I as Sam Tripley says, I flunked the first grade. So that's
Well, listen, this is
get it.
certainly not advertised, right? You don't advertise the miracles upon which your faith is based in the sciences, But if you dig into it, these are the bedrock principles of all these different ideas,
Yeah. And I think there's like some validity, and again, don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say here, especially the audience, because I'm not an evolutionist, but it's almost like they've taken the creation in Genesis and they've just turned it and changed it and created it for their own idea of what happened. Because when you do look at creation, right? God created the heavens and the earth, and God set a firmament, right? And in the there's a waters above and waters below, right? And when you look at when things start to come alive, it comes alive out of the water. And this kind of goes back to like where evolution's, hey, we were at first primordial soup and life developed, from sea life into other life. And I that's where I'm like, and maybe that's what I call like a type of gatekeeping. It's in a way they disbelieve the Bible so much that they're going to try and come up with their own ideas that they can justify and make it sound real good. And what I mean by justify is like on a medical scene, if I do something different than another paramedic, I know I can justify why I did that. It doesn't mean that it's right or the best way to do things or that it's entirely correct. It's just I can justify it and tell people what they want to hear, and then boom, I look like I did my job.
This is like the story of human history, is the ability to rationalize that you're the good guy, right? And this is, I would say, is maybe kind of, it's the same story over and over again, the biblical story. It's like you need an orienting truth, like you need a bedrock principle, and there's really only one good one, in my opinion. As I learn more and more about this stuff, it's the whole, some of these passages from the Bible, it's like, there's no way we came up with it. Like, lean not on your own understanding. Like, that is such a profoundly true truth, like some of these truths are just so profoundly true. It's like, man, you just see them in everything.
I remember I would tell Jesse that when he like wouldn't fully, and he, when he was like coming along, he was like catching on. and I would send him that because he's trying to compute things in his own brain
Yeah.
to make
Yep.
it make sense. And I was
Still
like,
do sometimes.
yeah, and
Same.
I would send him that verse, and he's like, "What do
All the
you
time.
mean? Like
Yeah.
what?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, because a lot of the Bible is spiritual. It's spiritual,
Right.
and we try to break things down in the physical because that's what we're consisted of. It's
Yeah.
like God will reveal these things to you, you know, over time, or how much you study the word, or how much research you do with all of that, and then things start to get revealed to you, and then they click, they make sense. You know, it's like, oh, I finally was able to swallow that bite. You know,
Right.
What's it called when you like open the Bible to a random page? There's like a word for it. You
oh
guys know what I'm
man,
talking
I don't know.
I was just telling.
Jesse's a big fan of that.
I was.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there's
He-
probably like some
Let me look it
weird. That's probably not like a good practice. I don't know, but
I think
It's
reading the
cool.
Bible in general, though,
It's almost
is
supernatural.
yeah, reading the Bible is probably never a bad thing, right? But so
Right.
I've got a hard stop at 7. So if I could end with
Okay.
this recent experience I had, it's not that recent anymore. It's like 3 years ago, but I was right. I was probably still would call myself an atheist, but I was definitely felt like something was wrong, you know, with that conception of the world. And I was having like a particularly, I would call it like a dark night of the soul, you know, like what does it all mean? Why are we here? Why is it so short? And I was having some health problems at the time, and I just was like in a dark place. I've never been one to like get depressed, but I was like some mix of like anxious and scared and upset, and so I had just started reading the Bible, and I opened it up and it was the verse in Job. It was like, who are, like, brace yourself like a man. Who are you to question me? You weren't there when I laid the cornerstone of the universe, kind of thing. And I was like, wow, it just felt like such a, like, it was
wow, bro.
exactly what I needed to read. Like, dude, just
Wow.
chill out. Like, who are you to question me? Just live your life, you know? And so, yeah, I think that was kind of, because people have always asked me, like, how did you make this journey? That might have kind of been maybe sort of like a turning point after that. I was like, okay, maybe I should should give this a try. You
Okay,
know?
you
Oh, yeah.
ready?
What we're doing is not working out.
It's called bibliomancy.
Bibliomancy.
The practice
Oh, yeah.
involves seeking guidance or insight by interpreting a randomly selected passage.
Yeah, and yeah, you know, it's maybe not. You could open it up, and it could be about wearing different linen cloths or whatever. But you know, in that moment, it felt powerful to me,
Yeah.
and so it was. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a version of lean not on your own understanding. Like,
Sure, absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
just all more complicated than we could possibly imagine.
I think so too. I did the same thing years ago. My grandmother passed away, and I felt lost, completely lost. I was young. I was 19 years old, and I was like, man, what? I don't even. I came to an understanding, a humility in myself. Like I don't even understand why I'm alive. Like
And
what's
you probably never will.
well, yeah, but I was
Well,
just like,
someday, hopefully, we
yeah,
will. But
right. I just wanted,
Right.
I wanted to take it more serious. I guess I wanted to take life more serious.
yeah,
And I did the same thing. I opened up to a random passage in Corinthians that was talking about how don't listen to man, for man is ignorant. And I really held on to that for a long time.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
don't idolize, like you were saying earlier. Don't idolize. Slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow it
Yeah.
on down.
Yeah. Trevor, brother, thank you for coming on the show, man. Dude, this
Thank you,
is
guys.
not the last time we're gonna have you on. This was one of the
Great
best conversations I
conversation, brother.
really think that we've had, if not
Oh,
one of
thanks.
the best podcasts I think we've had in a while. And that's not saying anything about our other guests or anything. This is just a show that just keeps getting better and better, baby. And we ain't ever gonna stop till I
Never gonna
stop.
stop. Never gonna stop.
I would love to come back as often as you'll have me. We need to talk about microtubules, and then we need to talk at some point. I've gotten super into the science of the shroud. So
I love it. I love it. All right, part 2 in the making, folks. Stay tuned for that. I'll be able to promote that and everything. But Trevor, real quick, man, just if you want to just let the audience know where they can find anything of your content creation and authorship and book and all that stuff.
Yeah, so please buy the book, God's Eye View. It's audiobook and print book. I read the audiobook. There's a few mistakes. Give me some grace. There's a couple repeat sentences. You'll be fine. It's okay. But if you like audiobooks, there's an audiobook. And please check out the podcast, Bad Press.
Bad
And the
press.
book's on Amazon. Sorry.
Hey,
Amazon.
by the way, Bad
Awesome.
Press, real quick. Bad Press. I looked it up on Spotify. Is it the red logo?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
And
We'll make sure
I
we
just
link
started
everything
that with
too.
my editor, so we're rookies, but it's getting there.
I like it.
I
Epstein
love
Part
it.
2 Money Talks. Bad Press. That caught my eye. All right.
That
Anyways,
sounds pretty good. Yeah, check out the previous episode. Oh well, we haven't. Well, it'll drop. But with Brad Binkley, we covered a lot of intense Epstein stuff with Propaganda Report. But
Nice.
Trevor, again, thank you, brother, for coming on the show, man. We're gonna move over to the Biblical Hitman debrief. But appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, guys.
Biblical Hitman debrief. Oh, Trevor Lohman, thanks for coming on the show, brother. Author, researcher, professor. Here's his book, folks. God's Eye View. Check it out. It's a really good read. It's an easy read as well, even though some of the words in here are ridiculous. But a lot of fun, to say the least. And that was an awesome show, man. We covered a little bit of his book, but we really, on the spiritual level of things and intellectual conversation of the Word of God, I think we did a pretty good job. I think we did an awesome job. A lot of fun.
I loved it. I just ramble. Like, I don't come into the show most of the time. Like, I know a little bit about the guests, but I'm really just more interested in their take on the world and where we're at and their spirituality.
Yeah, you went straight to Revelation.
Dude, where do you think we're at, Trev? Like, he's like, I want to talk about quantum.
Yeah, he's like, can I just talk about quantum physics, please?
No, he liked, dude. It was a great
though,
no,
and I think that these kind of conversations is, especially people that come on with a specialty, or they come on talking about a specific topic, or just authors coming on talking about their books. Sometimes it's good to take them into the deep water.
Sure. Absolutely. All of us.
And I think that's how we grow as Christians and men of God, believers, because that's really the best currency that we could give to each other, right? Getting into biblical stuff, or making connections with biblical stuff. And I really think we did a pretty awesome, fun job at that for this episode, especially for the audience. Drop a comment, man. See if what'd you guys think about this episode? Also, I'm excited for part 2, because I think we're going to dig more into quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and what did he say? Tubulars? It's something that's
he said he wants to come back on and talk about tubules.
Right, light, and which will be a fascinating thing, man. Especially with kind of like the topic we've been kind of getting into lately with this quantum technology. It seems like it's something that's just, it could be proposed as something as very helpful to humanity. And it's literally like what Olaf says in Frozen. It's like the advancements of technology could be our savior and our doom. And it's just this predictive programming idea of technology that it's some way going to be so useful and so good for us, right? It's going to help humanity tremendously. But at the same time, it turns a switch, and it turns its back on you in some way. And I think that's why we got into the conversation of artificial intelligence. And is this something that is conscious?
I agree with where Trevor was saying that we are the one programming all of this technology. We are steering the wheel still. I completely agree with that. I totally agree with that. And that is and to his part where he was saying that's the scariest part to him. I disagree in a way to where I'm saying, imagine a sentient, malevolent, or
taking control of it.
Malevolent. Is that how you say that? Yeah. Imagine some supernatural, whatever spirit, evil spirit, thinking for its own. Which is so crazy and stupid to say to a lot of people. But at the same time, I mean, look at Project Stargate. We are creating this system that is going to run the world, folks. I'm sorry. That's what they're creating.
And here's the thing,
right
too.
now.
Like, just because something says
banking, everything.
Like for example, if artificial intelligence at where it's at right now, that we are telling it in a way, or teaching it, or we're in control of its computing power, or level of degree to how it functions. That's not to, we can't be dogmatic on that understanding to where that's how it'll be forever. I think it's like with our, and I brought this up in the show. I look at artificial intelligence like the growth of a human, right? We grow from being a fertilized embryo, and then all of a sudden you're walking, talking, and cursing your parents out the next day. But at the same time, that to me shows the power of development. And if this artificial intelligence, which it's constantly developing, it's like it's growing like a human, right? And who's
Collecting
to
data,
say,
right?
who's to say when it gets to a certain level, a certain age, right? Because I'm comparing this to humans. It gets to a certain age and it all of a sudden just walks out on its parents, walks out, decides to go and
Yep.
live on its own.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
get where you're coming from.
you get where I'm
thinking
coming, because
first.
it's spiritual. It's
It's
spiritual
a
understanding too that comes behind this.
it's called the
a little bit.
agentic state, is what a lot of the tech guys are calling it. And
I would
that's
say it's like singularity.
it is, but they're calling it right now. They're saying it's like limited human interaction. It's more like
Right.
80%
Right.
20, 80-20 type of deal. Like
Right.
80% AI thinking for itself and 20% programming from a human standpoint.
Right.
And
And
I
then in the
think you're
movie
I think you're right.
Terminator, yeah, like in the movie Terminator, it was like Genesis, the countdown to Genesis, right? Genesis was going to be like, oh, the AI goes online and it's going to save humanity. And all of a sudden, no, dude, that was the point that it decided to walk out of the house or not listen to you as its parents.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then that's the pants
Yep.
around the ankles, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
pants around the ankles, man.
And you got Arnold Schwarzenegger coming in here as a flesh robot killing everybody, trying to kill John
And that
Connor.
there's another symbol in the movie too, that what you see with your own eyes and your understanding of something is not exactly what's behind the curtain.
Mhm.
Like you're seeing a natural human person walking around, but really it's a T-1000.
Yeah. No, I think
But this
that
is the conspiratorial mindset.
Sure.
And this is why sometimes it's tough for not Trevor, but just people in the science community. They hate, they don't hate, but they have a tough time wrapping their minds around how to think conspiratorial, right?
You're right. You're so right. And the fact is that there's been many conspiracies ployed against the world over, I mean, many years from Roman times and beyond. It's all like playing the game Risk.
How about in the
Yeah.
gospel, dude? Like, how about Jesus is telling Peter, like, "Hey, I'm going to die." And Peter's like, "No, Lord, I will not let anyone kill you." And he's like, "Get behind me, Satan." Like, no, you don't understand. There is a conspiracy against me. You think it's not going to happen because of your own way of thinking, but do not get in my way of my will being done. Right?
Mhm. Right.
Like
right,
Peter
right,
thought
right.
he was doing a good thing to try
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
protect
And we
his
all
best
would
friend.
probably say the same thing to Jesus.
Exactly. But that's
So
where we think we become so confident in our own thoughts with certain things
right.
that thing, and it's like life's moving like this at times, and it's just slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow
I
it
mean,
down, and then you can see the writing on what's around you.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Just don't don't rely on your own. It's a kind of a weird thing to
I'm
talk
glad
about
he
because it's
brought
like
that up, man, because that was awesome, dude.
humility. Like you got to understand you don't know everything, and you can't try to predict really anything. I mean, you just got to do
Yeah.
your best to keep your head on a swivel. I guess I don't know. What was I
Sure.
going to say? I was going to say something. Oh, I wanted to bring up earlier. We were talking about neural. He's in neuroscience, right? That's his vascular. I'm saying this wrong.
Oh,
Forgive me, Trevor. I think he said he's a. So I just thought of this earlier. I remember reading how you were talking about life is in the blood, and what pumps your blood around your body is your heart. It's a pump, and your heart actually sends more signals to the brain than the brain does to the heart. And I thought that was a very interesting fact
Wow.
about. It's just weird. It's
Yeah.
a
Well,
weird thing.
how about the consciousness discussion, because that was an
Right.
interesting discussion too, because let's just take for example, because the 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 papers on the table read that consciousness is something as far as agency as well, right? That it's something that no matter what you do to it, you can't overthrow you can't overthrow this conscious life in
You
a
have an
way.
agency, or
You have an
it's like,
agency over it. But
yeah.
and it's funny too. Trevor comes on and we get into discussions with him, and awesome conversations. And then but what's so funny is because I do think with this show, we the conversations that we have with the certain guests, with the timing of things, happen perfectly on time. Like, and what I mean by that is because what have we been talking about for the past month? Like agency over our consciousness, and that we think that there's a piece of technology that's going to be integrated with, humans and down the road that is going to block that or
Right.
take that away. And
Mm-hmm.
let's just use the example of MK Ultra. Like we're talking
Yeah.
about people that
Some Get
become
Out type
Manchurian
stuff.
candidates, right? Like they become sleeper cells. They become like we're
Mm.
talking about people that end up getting induced into not having agency over themselves anymore, with a certain trigger. And a lot of that stuff stems from like the occult. For example, I just went and watched the movie Weapons with my wife. I
Mm.
actually took my wife on a date. It was great. It was an awesome
Nice.
time. We went and we watched a scary movie, but you know me, brother. I'm in there, I'm watching the movies and I'm scanning. And
I can
and
see you
the
now.
whole time, right? Like people were being weaponized. But the main part of the whole movie is not only were people being weaponized, meaning there was an occult witch in the movie that
Mm.
was taking the agency away from all these different kinds of people in the town just to sustain her life and her longevity with her life. She was trying to live forever, so she was stealing almost like the life force from these people and controlling them like a queen bee would to the hive. Right? It's
Mm.
this whole hive mind concept that we
Right.
talk about on this show. We talk about it relating to the mark of the beast. We talk about the Antichrist playing that queen bee, because we know that there's going to be a war against the saints. We know that there's going to be why else would Christ say that these days should be shortened, or else no flesh should be saved?
Mm.
This means to me that is, I'm not going to say the word, but it's a mass elimination uh, concept where all of a sudden, the queen bee sends off a pheromone, aka the antichrist sends off whatever, a 5G frequency, maybe 6G frequency. These people that have the integration of the mark, or that are able to receive this pheromone, right? And then all of a sudden they're triggered to do what the queen wants them to do. This is like the zombie theory. We see all these things in movies because I
Right.
really think it's a concept that the occult is working very hard to accomplish for their God, right? Who they want to usher into this world so
Right.
badly. Why
That's
was
a
Aleister Crowley doing rituals in the desert? Why was Jack Parsons doing rituals in the desert? Why are they talking about bringing in this antichrist?
that's a really good point that you just made, that triggered such a simple thought but makes a lot of sense, is that programming would, if you were going to think about turning someone on, an on and off switch of whatever you want him to do, you're going to send out movies about viruses spreading and turning people into zombies. And also, you're going to send out, and then a lot of Christians have made, like, like, what's that cartoon that we always talk about? What's that?
Yeah, you can look it up on YouTube. Just type in Smart Mark
Smart.
cartoon. Smart Mark cartoon. You'll see something that pulls up. It looks like a news reporter is on like the thumbnail of the YouTube video. Check out that video, dude. And
It's
this is a
cartoon.
kids show on Netflix, right?
Wow.
And who's the last episode, with Brad, he brought up I'm gonna pull up the guy's name right now, but he brought up the guy who is pretty much the godfather of propaganda. His
Oh,
name
that's right.
is
Yeah.
Edward Bernays,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And with propaganda, you have the manipulation in the subconscious where they prime you to somehow get you to either accept that these things will happen, which could be a part of like that life force, um, that life force, that whole idea that it's the idea of consent to the occult. It's almost like if I'm selling lemonade and I'm poisoning the lemonade to kill you, I'm going to put a lemonade picture on the front of the tabletop cover
Right. Right.
with a big red circle with a you know a slash in the middle of it saying, or just a poison symbol on it. How about that? So if you come and you buy lemonade, it's
You're
your choice.
you're
You did
consenting.
that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
consented.
Yeah. You know what you're doing. Okay,
Right.
so Edward Bernays, he's the great uncle of Mark Randolph, one of Netflix co-founders.
Right. And that's why
Very
they come out
interesting.
with all these movies, man. That's why I mean, why do you think they're making superhero movies, right? Oh, and especially the movie I just watched, Weapons, right? The witch in the movie literally was wearing a red wig, painting red
Mm,
lipstick, like ridiculously, by the way. It was not even looking good. It was like she was
Ronald
putting on this
McDonald
she was
looking ass.
putting on this image, and with like kind of black around the eyes and white makeup around the everything else. That literally, if you go check out Paul Stobbs, you look, Nephilim look like clowns. We have an idea through different cultures in our history that these offspring of the fallen angels give off a clownish look.
Mm,
And it's funny
blood.
that the witch was doing that, which the witch was not only an occultist, but she was praying to Satan throughout the movie, or was Satan. Um, you know,
Yeah.
Satan
I
being a
think
fallen angel.
I think at the end of the day, people that understand the dark arts, as Theo Von would say, the dark arts, it's true. I believe it. And I think what these people do is they channel these beings by emulating them. And that's where all these festivals come in, like Fosnock Festival. Paul Stobbs talks a lot about that. It's a festival
Mhm.
in Germany. And it's basically they dress up like a bunch of demons to get rid of the end of the year. It's like an end of the year festival. Like bring
Yeah.
on we're going to scare the demons away to bring on the summer or the spring, and then everything's going to grow and be luscious. That's like one of their festivals. But what they're doing is they're emulating all the demons, and if you emulate a demon properly or emulate an evil spirit, you'll be able to control it in some circumstance to benefit you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what she was doing in the movie, right? She was sorry, a big
Right. Right.
big spoiler,
I don't
folks.
even care because we need to do a movie review on that because there's so
Ooh,
much
let's
more to
do
the
it.
movie. The black goo is in the movie. This is
Last
where
time we
I.
did
This is
a
where.
Last
Huh?
time we did a review was Will Smith, and that I think we got
What movie
flagged.
was that?
No, it was
Oh,
this
yes.
music video.
Oh, well,
Remember?
we're not gonna play it. I think
Yeah,
literally that we just need to talk about the movie and
yeah,
the
sure.
cryptic symbols and our conclusions to what I think. I mean, my conclusions to this is what I literally think. An idea of what it could look like for those that do take the mark of the beast,
Hmm.
and the fact that you lose your agency to some sort of trigger, a certain frequency. In the movie too, she rings a bell and boom, dude. But she does a
Oh,
ritual, right?
dude, just
Dude,
like Get
she
Out.
she did this ritual right in front of the guy just before she took over his brain, his
Ugh.
mind. Literally,
Yeah,
she like cuts her
they have to.
hand, but she takes something
The guy
from
had no
you.
idea.
Listen to
Oh,
this.
good.
She takes something from you. Dude, this movie had so much significance to the story
So
that
she takes
Top
like
was talking
a
about.
clothing item or something of
Something
that's
that is
yours.
of your person, something that's of your
Yeah, it's got
person.
your DNA on it, pretty much.
I wouldn't say
Skin
DNA,
cells,
but it's
sure.
it's it's
You
attached to you.
you take this hat off me, it's gonna have my
Yes.
skin cells on it. Like it's
Well,
gonna be. That's
Yeah, I would say it's an object. It could be an object or a piece of you because people were taking she was taking
Hair.
pieces of
Right.
hair.
Yeah,
She
right, right.
was taking and what's funny is whatever is
Mother.
wrapped around this it's funny because she uses a tree, right? And it's almost like you can make a connection there with the tree of knowledge of good and evil. She uses like little tree branches of this tree that she has. It's almost like a Joshua looking tree, dude. It was really wild,
Ooh.
bro.
Dude,
This
Joshua
movie,
trees are
well,
related
that
to a
whole
lot of
area
evil
is,
stuff.
oh, I
Yeah.
know. But I think there's like this old ancient ritual that is out there. And I'm gonna try and find the ritual because I think it'll make the movie even that much better if
You're gonna
people understand.
perform it? You're gonna look
No,
up
no,
the
no, no, no. No, no, no. Nope. I tell you what, we prayed on the way home, though. We prayed on the way
Oh,
home.
yeah.
We prayed against everything. By the way, I was sabotaged. I think it was spiritual attack, man, because I think that the devil did not, or whoever is in opposition of Jesus Christ, did not want me to go see that movie because of how I break movies down and because I'm giving this information not just to myself, not just to my wife and my mom looking all
You have
crazy and
discernment for
stuff.
everybody.
I'm
Right.
actually, yeah, like I'm giving little currencies to everyone, man, because people need to start waking up. This is the world that we do live in.
I'll be
This is the
completely
reality of the world.
I'll be completely honest with you, and this is speaking directly to the listeners. I am a very skeptical person, and I try to be that way. It's almost like a scientific method I use to have discernment and reality. And I deny stuff at first most of the time, and then I kind of I come around to it. Like I'm like, okay, I'll give it a chance. Let's look more into this. Stevie, every time Stevie's watched any movies, he's come back to me with the craziest symbolism and what it means and what it could mean. And it's dude, I'm telling you right now, there's been nothing he's said to me about, I don't know, several dozen movies. That all clicked. It was all like, dude, I think you're spot on, bro.
Yeah. Well, dude, how about this, right? And this is funny because I think not only is this podcast under spiritual warfare with the players that make this
I have a
podcast
funny
to
story
be,
about that,
right? Like,
real quick.
but for example, they're occult rejects. I don't know the gentleman's first name, but he was on Bennett's show and he
Mm,
talked about the dilation of a pupil and a
mm,
constriction of the other pupil.
yep.
They're not bilaterally equal, right? And so he says that, and this is a guy who is involved or was involved with OTO, right? Like this is like one of the highest degrees of hermeticism in ancient Egypt. It's what basically I think Aleister Crowley was involved in, like this
Thelma
Templar, right, or
Tecmo.
whatever it was, or
Mm,
Templiars, whatever it is. I'm not an occultist, but he was mentioning that when he would mess around with magic, his pupils would go like that. And in
change
the
the
movie,
dilation.
bro, in the movie, literally the witch at the dinner table in one of the scenes, you can see it, bro. Her one of her pupils is constricted, the other one's blown, bro. And she's doing a ritual right there, the magic
Jeez.
ritual in front of the son, and she's controlling the consciousness
Oh
of the
man.
parents, of his parents.
Oh jeez, dude.
Oh,
Okay,
dude,
stop. Don't ruin
I
too much
can't
because I
ruin
want
it
to
too
watch this.
much. Okay.
But I do want to say this. Like, that being said, I did not believe Stevie at all. He showed me the video. I said that's BS. I've been around drugs plenty enough. It does that with psilocybin. It does that with MDMA. It does that when you're having a panic attack or you're dehydrated or you're low on potassium. Like, there's a lot of different. So I was telling him, like,
There's
I'm
other
not a.
factors that can
I'm
be at
just I
play
just
here.
have those certain life experiences that are all very weird that I had so many that would dilate your eyes different sizes. But then Stevie comes at me, I'm like, I don't really believe that. He was talking about the Liver King, right?
Mhm.
That the Liver King's dilation was two different
Right,
sizes.
right.
He had like blue on his tongue, methylene blue. Everybody's taking that right now. So I'm like, I don't know
I think
what
that's
this. I think
another
that,
ritual.
yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
another
the blue.
modern practiced ritual in
Oh,
the name of a trend.
mm,
And the world puts on these trends, but people don't know. The ice bucket challenge was a ritual. People had no idea. They thought they were doing something good for a for a foundation, which
very
they
weird. I
were,
did it.
but they
I
don't
did it.
know. They don't know that they're doing something that is of
Yep.
ancient understanding. And and you know what? God gives us confirmation, man, through certain things. And I feel like when I went and saw that movie, which I think I was being sabotaged to not go see the movie, but I went and saw it.
Mm.
And
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about this.
and I think that seeing that people thing was confirmation for an idea that
Very
may be
interesting.
true. You know what I'm
Very
saying?
interesting. Oh yeah. No, I believe I was sold when you called me earlier. I was leaving a job and Stevie called me and told me the story about the pupil dilation. I was like, you know what? I had this weird thought after I told you that's ridiculous. And I was being arrogant, and I told you I was like, that's just ridiculous to me. There's it could be a plethora of things, especially drugs is the first thing I think of because you look at Liver King and he's out of his damn mind right now. But regardless of that, I just randomly thought, you're like, you know what? You need to calm down and you need to hear this out and stop being so selfish and arrogant. And then Stevie calls me and tells me this. I'm like, okay, that's confirmation for me. I'm done. I believe it. I'm there now. I'm sold. It's hilarious.
Oh
I'm sold. Oh, I
man.
wanted to say this last
Yeah.
thing. I was having bad dreams the other night. I had a family friend come into town and stay with us with his son for a couple days. And I was like having a bad dream. And I was like, I woke up out of bed and I felt a really negative vibe in my house. And I walked downstairs and he fell asleep to Insidious, and Insidious was on.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's why. I turned it off, prayed a little bit, went back to bed. We good. But I don't get negative vibes like that in my house. And I'm like, why do I feel this way? I need to go I
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
go
yeah.
scope my house out. Like I need to go
That's the Holy Spirit
feel
turning in you a little bit like, hey man, you know.
wake up. Yeah. That's kind of what it was. I just randomly woke up out of nowhere and I
Yeah.
was like,
Get up,
this
go turn the TV
very
off.
weird
Something's
negative
something
vibe. So
something wants
anyways,
something's not of my liking. Yeah.
I think that's exactly
We have
what it is.
exercised the
The
demons. Great movie, Ace Ventura. Go check it out, folks. All right. Well, hey, that was an awesome debrief. Again, Trevor, brother, thank you for coming on the show, man. Had a really awesome conversation. It was the first, but it's not the last. We're going to
Oh,
do a part 2 of a God's eye view, folks. And hopefully we can get to that in a reasonable time. We still have a part 2 to do with Austin Picard. I want to work on that. But man, folks, we are so slammed. We have such
it's
a
awesome.
great schedule for you folks. Awesome guests, especially next week. L.A. Marzulli and Shepherd for the King, Matt. It's going to be pretty good. Stay tuned. If you've hung out with us this long, we appreciate you. We love you. And you want to support the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends. You can check us out on audio platforms as well.
Real quick about
Spreaker,
the ads.
Apple
The ads.
Podcasts, and Spotify.
Sorry.
And Jesse wants to cut me off.
I'm doing
my
it.
flow
I'm
and
doing
talk about ads real quick.
Ads, folks. We love you. We appreciate you on Spotify and the audio. It's kind of annoying, but come to our YouTube. If you don't like the ads, come to the YouTube.
Yep, and that's why I post when
here.
we premiere the YouTube, and I put notifications on there, basically as well in the description that this is ad-free space. So come on over to the YouTube, check us out, see how ugly we look, and hit that subscribe button. But with all that said, that's it, man. Folks, we love you. Gonna see you next time.
See you.